You don't need to savor a seat, my aunt snapped, her voice slicing through the light chatter in the hotel ballroom like a knife. Her perfectly manicured fingers pointed toward the entrance, without even glancing back. She doesn't belong at our table. A few of my cousins laughed, soft but deliberate, like they'd been waiting to echo her words for years. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos? And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. I stood just inside the grand doors of the Hilton Banquet Hall, gripping my clutch like a lifeline. The golden chandeliers above caught the shimmer of the silver pin in my hair, but it did nothing to ease the weight pressing down on my chest. My heels clicked against the marble floor as I considered turning around. For a split second, I actually did. I looked over my shoulder. I could leave, walk out quietly, pretend like it didn't sting. But before I even took a full step, I heard the first flash pop. Click. Flash. Then another. And another. Reporters. Cameras. Shouting. Ms. Lennox. Over here. Was the acquisition finalized this morning? What do you say to those accusing the merger of undercutting Delman Enterprises? Do you have a statement for your investors? My family froze. My aunt's mouth hung open like someone had just snatched the champagne flute right out of her hand. I slowly turned back, my pulse steady, my back straightened on its own. All eyes were on me now, my family's judgmental stares clashing with the wild flashing lights of the local press. I gave a soft smile to the cameras but said nothing yet. Let them wait. Let it build. A moment later, I heard the voice of a woman I recognized, Kendra Fielding, the sharp business correspondent from City Ledger News, push through the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Amelia Lennox, the CEO of Lennox Tech, and as of this morning, the new majority stakeholder in Delman Enterprises, she announced, turning dramatically toward the ballroom guests. Today marks the largest female-led merger in state history. The silence in the room was deafening. Someone at the table dropped their fork. I didn't turn to see who. My gaze was fixed on my aunt's face, frozen, pale, the corners of her mouth twitching as if her brain couldn't quite compute what had just happened. I walked toward the front table, their table, without asking permission, without waiting for someone to offer me a chair. My mother sat there too, quiet and awkward, pretending to sip from an empty glass, her eyes darting between me and the stunned faces surrounding her. I pulled out the seat they'd been trying so hard to guard, the one they claimed wasn't mine, and sat down slowly, deliberately. I'd say thank you for saving me a seat, I murmured, just loud enough for my aunt and cousins to hear, but I see it was already mine to begin with. The camera flashes started again. This time slower, more intentional. The way a storm slows right before the lightning strikes again. A few seats down, my cousin Leah stammered. Why, you're the one who bought out Delman? That's Grandpa's company. I looked at her evenly. It was. Then I turned back to my aunt. She was blinking rapidly, trying to collect herself, lips tight. She finally found her voice, brittle and disbelieving. You're her daughter. You were barely getting by. Working at a coffee shop last we heard. That was 4 years ago, I interrupted gently, swirling the glass of water in front of me. While you were planning this reunion, I was closing a 9-figure deal. The room was still quiet, until my uncle, Ronald, a man whose ego walked 2 steps ahead of him everywhere, cleared his throat loudly and leaned forward. This is all just a stunt, he muttered, his voice trembling with misplaced authority. You don't even belong in the industry. You never went to Wharton like the rest of us. You were, what? A high school dropout with a website. I met his stare without flinching. You're right. I never went to Wharton. But I hired 2 of your Wharton classmates last year. I replied. They work in my New York office. Want me to say hi for you? His face flushed dark red. I wasn't done. I was told for years that I wasn't good enough. Not smart enough. Not like the rest of the Lennox family. And I believed it, until the day I realized my strength wasn't in fitting in, it was in walking away. A hushed murmur rippled through the guests who'd stopped mid-bite to watch everything unfold. "You all laughed when I failed," I said louder now. "You said I was chasing nothing, that I embarrassed this family, that no one would ever take me seriously." I stood up slowly, glass still in hand. "But today you're sitting at my table. And whether you like it or not, this family has a new head now." And then, with every camera still pointed at me, I raised the glass. To starting over. The clinks were slow, hesitant, but they came. Even from some of the cousins who once joined in mocking me. And my aunt? She didn't touch her glass at all. She just stared, still frozen. The look of power slipping from her fingers like sand she couldn't clutch anymore. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just a reunion anymore. This was my arrival. The cameras faded, but the silence at the table lingered like smog. My aunt, Vivian Lennox, finally moved, but only to adjust her pearl necklace, the one she'd inherited from Grandma before she had the nerve to tell the rest of us it was too delicate for a girl like Amelia. Her hands were trembling. Good. Leah looked like she'd seen a ghost. She kept glancing between me and her father, Ron, as if waiting for one of them to yell prank and return the reunion to its regular programming. But it wasn't coming. I didn't flinch as the room swallowed me whole. Instead, I adjusted the folded linen napkin across my lap, uncapped the chilled bottle of water in front of me, and leaned into the table like I belonged there. Because I did. For the first time in years, I truly did. Across from me, Ron's wife Jennifer gave a half-hearted laugh. "Well, look who grew up," she said, her tone trying to be playful but coming off more bitter than sweet. "You clean up well, I'll give you that." "You mean I don't look like someone who sleeps in her car anymore?" I replied, sipping my water. "That's what you told my mom 2 years ago, right? When she tried to invite me to Aunt Valerie's funeral?" Jennifer's smile cracked. The air tightened. My mother, seated 2 chairs away, finally found the courage to speak. "Amelia, honey, maybe we should talk, just the 2 of us." I turned to her. "Sure. Let's talk. I'd love to hear why you stayed silent every time they humiliated me." Her face fell. She didn't deny it. She just folded her hands in her lap and looked down like the linen had the answers she never did. I stood up, pushing my chair back slowly. "Actually, let's talk now. All of us. Since you've spent years whispering behind closed doors about how I wasn't one of you. Since I wasn't invited to Cousin Jacob's wedding. Since I found out through Instagram that Grandpa's cabin was sold. Since every one of you convinced yourselves I was a failure." A pause. Newsflash. I didn't disappear. I worked. I built something while you all judged. And now the name Lennox doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to the woman you kicked out. My Uncle Ron scoffed. "Is that what this is? A power play?" I leaned forward, resting my palms on the table. "No," I said. "This is justice." Silence. Tension choked the air. Just then, someone tapped on my shoulder. I turned. It was Liam. He wore a navy suit, clean-cut, my head of public affairs. Calm, reliable. My right hand ever since I launched Lennox Tech. The guy who stood by me when all I had was a half-broken laptop and Wi-Fi stolen from the laundromat next to my old studio apartment. "Amelia, the governor's press team wants to schedule a follow-up for tomorrow morning," he whispered. "They said to congratulate you again," and he lowered his voice. "They're calling this the comeback story of the decade." My lips twitched into a satisfied smile. "Tell them I'll call tonight," I said. "And to have their comms director send a media kit. Let's stay ahead of this." Liam nodded. "Got it." As he stepped away, I caught the disbelieving look in my aunt's eyes. "You brought an entourage to a family reunion?" she snapped. I shrugged. "You brought arrogance. At least my guest list has a purpose." Across the room, people had started whispering. A few distant relatives and old family friends were watching closely now. Some with surprise, some with shame. All with interest. I glanced back at the table. "By the way," I added, "I bought this hotel last month." They blinked. I wasn't going to say anything, I said, running my fingers across the edge of the tablecloth. But then again, It seems some of you still don't recognize who I am. So let me spell it out. I lifted my hand and motioned to the head waiter. He walked over briskly. Yes, Ms. Lennox? Clear table 7 after dessert, I said calmly. They're done here. The color drained from Vivian's face. You can't do that, she hissed. I stood tall, shoulders squared. I just did. They didn't move immediately, but the servers were already coming. Quiet, polished, unbothered. My family finally rose, one by one, like children being dismissed from class. They moved stiffly, humiliated, gathering their things while pretending not to care. My uncle grabbed his coat. My cousins avoided my eyes. They weren't just angry. They were confused. Because people like them never think the ones they step on will rise above them. But I had. I wasn't the forgotten niece anymore. I was the storm they didn't see coming. As they walked off, I sat again. Calm, poised, unshaken. Kendra Fielding passed by on her way out, raising her phone like a toast. That was gold, Amelia. Pure gold. The public is going to eat this up. I didn't smile. Because this wasn't about headlines. This was about healing. And I hadn't even started. I didn't plan to leave the ballroom right away. I wanted them to know I stayed. I stayed in the room they tried to erase me from. I wasn't some ghost passing through. I was now the one casting shadows. I sat at the now empty table and reached for my untouched dessert. The chocolate mousse was rich, delicate, a luxury I once thought I'd never taste again. Funny how life changes. I took a small bite just as Leah returned. She stood beside the table awkwardly, twisting a napkin in her hand. I didn't know, Amelia, she said quietly. I mean, no one told me you were doing all this. We thought you moved away, and you kind of disappeared. I met her eyes. I had to disappear, I replied. You all made sure there wasn't a place for me here. Leah lowered her gaze. We were just kids back then. I didn't mean to be cruel. I placed my fork down gently. Cruelty doesn't care about age, Leah. You were old enough to laugh when they joked I'd end up barefoot, working behind a diner counter. She flinched at that. I sighed, softer this time. But I'm not here to settle every score. Then why are you here? She asked honestly. I thought about it. Because I needed to see their faces when they realized the girl they threw away didn't vanish. She rebuilt herself. Leah hesitated, then nodded slowly. I deserved that. She walked off after that, quieter, no fake smiles. I glanced down at my watch. I didn't realize how quickly time had passed. My car was waiting outside, but I wasn't ready to leave yet. The ballroom was still half full. Distant relatives murmured among themselves. Some glanced my way, others pretended not to. But I could feel it, something had shifted tonight. As I stepped outside into the hallway, the cool air hit me. Finally, space to breathe. Liam stood waiting near the elevator. You okay? He asked. I shrugged. It's strange. I thought I'd feel more triumphant. He nodded. Revenge doesn't always feel like fireworks. Sometimes it just feels quiet. Yeah. We walked in silence until we reached the elevator. I tapped the call button, then turned to him. Remember when I was crashing on your couch? Eating dollar ramen for every meal? You mean last decade? He grinned. You wouldn't stop talking about this tech idea you had, voice pattern-coded scheduling AI. Everyone else thought it was ridiculous. I thought it was genius. And you let me build it in your garage, I said, smiling faintly. Even when your girlfriend hated it. She hated a lot of things. The elevator doors opened. But I didn't step in. I want to stop by someone's house before we head out, I said suddenly. Family? Not exactly. An hour later, we pulled up to a modest one-story house on Willow Avenue. Lights were on inside. Curtains slightly parted. I walked alone up to the door. When it opened, I came face to face with her. Mrs. Thompson, my high school business teacher. Her eyes widened. Amelia? I hope it's not too late. She ushered me in immediately, warmth radiating from her like always. I've been seeing the headlines, she said. But I didn't know if I should reach out. I didn't want to intrude. You were never an intrusion, I said honestly. You were the only person who believed in me back then. She smiled, eyes misty now. You told me once, I said, that sometimes the best revenge is success delivered with grace. I didn't understand it then. And now, she asked softly. Now I do. She reached over and squeezed my hand. You've come a long way, Amelia. But don't let the past anchor you too long. You have more to build than just proving them wrong. I nodded. That night, I didn't go back to the hotel. I sat on her old couch, sipping warm tea, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to fight to be seen. I just was. I woke up the next morning to my phone buzzing relentlessly on the nightstand beside me. For a second, I thought it was an alarm. But it wasn't. It was dozens of notifications, emails, texts, headlines. Liam had already left me 3 voicemails by the time I pressed play. Amelia, call me now. Someone leaked a story. A big one. It's all over the morning broadcasts. Delman's former board members are claiming your acquisition was done through manipulation and pressure tactics. I sat up straight. Of course. I should have seen this coming. I called Liam immediately. They're saying I what? I snapped. That you used insider contacts and pressured banks to drop Delman's remaining financing line. They're trying to paint you as a corporate predator. They weren't saying that last week when they begged me to buy them out quietly. They're desperate, Liam said. They lost, and they're trying to make you look like the villain. I stood, pacing across the small guest room in Mrs. Thompson's house. Let them talk. Amelia, we can't just ignore this. There's a press conference being scheduled. A few ex-board members, one of your cousins, Matthew, he's listed as a speaker. I stopped cold. Matthew? He was one of them. I gave him a job, Liam. I handed him a position last year when no one else would. I know, but he's part of it now. They're cornered, and he's just trying to save himself. I closed my eyes, jaw tight. My own blood. The second they felt my power shake their comfort, they decided to turn. I'll handle it, I said. 3 hours later, I walked into the glass tower that bore my name, Lennox HQ. The elevator ride up was quiet, reflective. The last time I was here, I had the world cheering me on. Today, it felt like knives were being sharpened behind every screen. The boardroom was already filled. My legal team, PR, even my CFO looked tense. I sat at the head of the table, composed, controlled. Let's make something clear, I said. This story isn't about ethics. It's about ego. They can't handle that someone like me, the girl they mocked, dismissed, and labeled a failure, outplayed them in the open. Amelia, we need a public counter-narrative, Vanessa, my head of comms, said. If we let them control this narrative for more than 24 hours, it'll snowball. I tapped the table lightly, thinking, do we still have the emails? Liam nodded. Every single one. We documented the entire acquisition process. Clean. Legal. Every bank signature. Every financial disclosure. Their panic won't change that. I looked up. Then we go public. Today? Vanessa blinked. I stood. No. We go now. By noon, I was standing in front of cameras again. This time not at a reunion, but on my own turf. Behind me, the massive silver Lennox Tech logo gleamed. Some of you may have heard recent claims from certain individuals. Claims meant to tarnish not only my name, but the integrity of my team, my company, and the legitimate business practices we've built from the ground up. I paused. I will not be bullied into silence. I did not get here by playing dirty. I got here by working harder than every person who once told me I didn't belong. I clicked the remote in my hand. On the screen behind me, emails began to cycle. Signatures, approvals, meeting minutes, paper trails. They didn't expect someone like me to document every step. But I did, because I've always known what it's like to be doubted, challenged, and framed. Another pause. My only mistake was thinking that blood makes someone trustworthy. The room was dead silent. But I've learned now, I said, voice steady, that family doesn't always mean loyalty. And success doesn't require permission. I walked off stage with my head high. Let them drown in their lies. Back in my office, I finally had a moment to breathe. But just as I reached for the folder on my desk, the the door opened again. It was my mother. She stood at the threshold quietly, hands clutched. "Can I come in?" I didn't answer right away. Then I nodded. She walked in, sat down slowly across from me. "I watched your speech," she said. "You were powerful." I looked at her, waiting. "I should have stood up for you back then," she whispered. "I was scared. I let them control everything, even how I treated my own daughter." The silence between us stretched. "I kept hoping one day you'd come back to us on your knees, begging for forgiveness," she added. "I never thought you'd come back like this." I leaned forward, voice soft but firm. "I didn't come back to impress you, Mom. I came back to bury what you all tried to kill in me." Her eyes welled up. "I know," she said, "and I deserve that." I didn't say it out loud, but maybe that was enough for now. The next weekend, I was back in the same town where it all started, where I once waited tables and shared a cold apartment with flickering lights and paper-thin walls. Except this time, I wasn't here to hide or survive. I was here to end it on my terms. The community tech hub I'd been secretly funding for 2 years was finally opening, and I wanted to be there when the ribbon was cut. I had poured a chunk of the Delman acquisition into this place, quietly, away from headlines, because real power wasn't about press. It was about legacy. And mine wasn't going to be built on revenge alone. As I stepped onto the small stage in front of the modest new building, families clapped, kids smiled, and young women stood at the front holding laptops and dreaming bigger than I ever dared to at their age. This place is for the kids who were told they weren't smart enough, rich enough, or the right kind of people, I said into the mic. It's for the ones like me, who started at zero. A small hand reached out from the crowd. Her name was Hallie. 11. She handed me a drawing. A woman in a red blazer, standing on a mountain, holding a flag that said, "Never quit." I blinked hard. That meant more than any boardroom ever had. That evening, just before heading back to the city, I stopped by my grandfather's old house, now just a quiet shell with a faded fence and porch lights that barely worked. Matthew was there. He looked surprised when I stepped out of the car. "What are you doing here?" he asked stiffly. "Checking on what's left," I said. "Of this place and of you." He crossed his arms. "If you came to yell, don't bother. I already lost everything." I looked at him. "You didn't lose everything," I said. "You lost my trust." His jaw clenched. "I thought you'd turn the family name into something shameful." "No," I said calmly. "I turned it into something earned. There's a difference." We stood in silence, the breeze rustling the dry leaves around our feet. Then I added, "You sold your name to the same people who spat on me for years. But if you ever want to build something real, without hiding behind titles, you know where to find me." I turned and walked away. Not to prove anything. Not to win. But because I didn't owe them my rage anymore. Only my silence. And that hurt more. Back in my penthouse overlooking the city, I sat by the window alone. Liam had called earlier, investors were happy, press was shifting again in my favor, and another partnership was on the table. But none of that mattered in this quiet moment. What mattered was the stillness inside me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for their approval. I wasn't chasing their apology. I had outgrown every insult, every door they slammed, every table they claimed I didn't belong at. Because I had built my own, and it was stronger than anything they could ever tear down. The airport group chat pinged again. Another photo. This time it was a cocktail. Blue Lagoon, extra ice. My sister Amber had captioned it, "Sunset drinks in Santorini." Tropical drink blue heart, with a heart emoji and a row of clapping hands. I sat at my desk, fluorescent office lights humming overhead, staring blankly at the screen. The scent of stale printer ink mixed with my cold, half-eaten chicken wrap. I hadn't responded to a single message in that group chat for 2 days now. And not one of them noticed. No one had noticed when I didn't show up at JFK with them. Because I was never invited. Not even a text. Not a phone call. Not a casual, "Hey, we're planning a trip." Nothing. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, Don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. 3 days ago, I found out from my younger cousin Tiffany, who had slipped up while asking if I'd packed sunscreen, that my entire family was flying out for a 2-week, once-in-a-lifetime vacation to Greece. Everyone was going.
Mom,
Dad, Amber, my brother Nolan, his wife, their kids, even Uncle Rick and his new girlfriend, who no one liked but tolerated for the free wine. Everyone except me. When I finally confronted my mom over the phone, her voice was tight but polite. "It's just too expensive to include everyone, Hannah," she said. Everyone. Everyone except me. I didn't scream.
didn't cry.
I just said, "Don't worry about me." And I meant it. She had no idea what she'd just set in motion. Because the truth is, I wasn't the broke one in the family. I wasn't the struggling daughter living paycheck to paycheck like they all thought. That was the old Hannah. The new me? Well, they'd learn soon enough. I leaned back in my leather chair, glancing across my penthouse office window overlooking Manhattan. The skyline shimmered like diamonds under the evening sun. I didn't inherit anything. I built this. I was the director of finance at a private venture firm that had quietly made me one of the highest-earning women in the company's history. I managed 8 accounts for ultra-wealthy clients. And I'd recently taken over managing the personal accounts for my parents, too, after Dad said he was too tired of adulting. So yes, I handled all their card limits, the international settings, the trip pre-authorizations, everything. And yes, I let their flight tickets process. I let the AirBnBs go through. I even watched from my dashboard as Amber's luggage upgrade from basic economy to extra comfort was approved. But I never increased the international limits on their accounts past the 72-hour mark. Because they didn't think I was worthy of a $3,000 vacation seat?
Fine.
Let's see how they enjoy their luxury trip when their cards start declining halfway through paradise. 3 days later, Santorini, Greece. My phone buzzed once. Then again. Then 5 more times. I didn't check. Another buzz. Nolan's name lit up the screen. I ignored it. Then came a string of messages. Mom. Hey sweetie, weird thing. Our cards aren't working.
Can you check?
Amber. Help? We're locked out of the villa and can't pay the balance. Dad. What the hell's going on with the accounts? I took a slow sip of my iced latte. Sunlight beamed in through my apartment windows. A quiet jazz tune played from my speaker. I was in no rush. Not anymore. They had chosen to forget me.
But money?
Oh, money never forgets who's in charge. I let an hour pass, then opened the group chat. Amber had sent a voice note. I pressed play. Her voice was shaky.
Windy.
We're literally stranded on the street. The villa won't let us in until the card works. And Mom's panicking. Hannah, what's happening? Please. A part of me, deep down, felt the old instincts kick in. Fix it. Be the responsible one. Patch the hole. Save the family. But I didn't move. Because they had spent a lifetime expecting me to shrink myself so they could shine. To pay silently. To help without thanks. To exist quietly in the background like an unpaid assistant to their spotlighted lives. Not anymore. I typed slowly. You said it was too expensive to include everyone. I assumed you didn't need my help anymore. And hit send. The chat went dead silent. The silence was delicious. For someone who had always been talked over, dismissed, or treated like a spare wheel in her own family, watching them go completely speechless, even in text, was the closest thing I'd felt to liberation in years. It didn't take long for the messages to resume. Mom. Hannah. This isn't funny.
Dad.
Fix the cards.
Now.
Amber. You're being petty. We didn't mean to leave you out. It just made more sense this way. I scoffed out loud. Made more sense? Like what? Mathematically? Strategically? Emotionally? They thought I was disposable. A maybe person. A background character in the story of their perfect lives. I got up from the couch, walked barefoot across the marble flooring to my bar counter, and poured myself a glass of cold white wine. They had no idea who I'd become over the last 3 years. I hadn't flaunted my success. I didn't show off the bonuses, the awards, the equity shares. When they asked what I did at the finance place, I downplayed it.
It was easier to keep the peace that way.
But peace had a price. And this time, they weren't going to skip the bill. Just as I settled back down, the FaceTime request came in.
Mom.
I let it ring until it cut off. 30 seconds later, it came again. Amber.
Declined.
Another from Dad.
Declined.
Then a new number appeared. Foreign. Likely the Greek villa's landline. I didn't answer that one either. I knew them too well. They weren't calling out of love or regret. They were calling because they were stuck. And I wasn't their plan B anymore. A few hours passed. I logged into the banking dashboard. All 3 of their cards had been declined at the same time around 7:42 p.m. Greece time. Nolan had tried to buy groceries. Amber had tried to upgrade the Wi-Fi at the villa. My parents had tried to settle the balance for an ATV rental. Every transaction bounced. They were likely standing in the villa courtyard right now, hungry, irritated, and unable to book a ride, order food, or contact their bank directly without roaming charges. In a cruel twist of fate, I realized they'd never learned how to handle their own money. That used to be my role. And now I wasn't answering. The next morning, Santorini. Amber. I'm sleeping on a towel. The villa guys said we're locked out until the balance clears. Mom, we just need you to authorize the card. Then we'll talk. Please, sweetie. Dad, we raised you. Don't act like this. That last one lit a fire in my chest. They raised me? They raised me? Sure, maybe in the technical sense. But being raised wasn't the same as being seen. I remembered birthdays skipped because Amber had dance recitals. Remembered sharing a single bedroom while Nolan got his own study space. Remember my college tuition being pulled last minute because Dad wanted a new boat. And I remembered holding Mom's hand when she had her health scare, but being pushed away at the family dinner 2 weeks later because I brought the wrong dessert. I never mattered unless they needed something. And now
they needed something.
Again. I opened my phone and began typing a message. Then stopped. Let them sit with the silence. Let them sit with what it's like to be the one left out. Back in New York, 2 days later. I was walking out of a client meeting when I saw the email notification. Subject: Account closure request, Nolan Green. It had been sent by mistake. Likely, Nolan trying to take over his own financial account without realizing it was under corporate oversight. A manual closure request meant he was panicking. Scrambling. A second email hit moments later. Subject: Emergency limit extension, Amber Green. She was trying to bypass me. Through the bank. But it wouldn't work. They'd need my signature. I let them try. I let them fail. Later that evening, my doorman buzzed. Miss Green, there's someone asking to come up. Says he's your brother.
Nolan?
I walked down to the lobby instead of buzzing him in. And sure enough, there he was, sunburnt, hair frazzled, face creased with stress. Hey, he said. Can we talk? I folded my arms. Is Greece not sunny enough? He didn't laugh. Just swallowed hard.
We messed up, he said.
I know we did. We should have included you. But it wasn't just about the money. Mom said you wouldn't enjoy it. That you were always so independent and busy. I tilted my head. So instead of asking, she assumed. Like always.
He sighed.
Can we go upstairs? Just talk. I stared at him for a long beat, then nodded slowly. Not because he deserved it, but because I wanted to see if he had it in him to say what needed to be said. Inside, he glanced around the place. He'd never seen my apartment before. Damn, he muttered. You're doing all right. I sat across from him, cold, measured. You didn't come to apologize, I said. You came because you need something. His silence was confirmation enough. I let the moment hang between us. Then I leaned forward. You left me behind, I said. Just like everyone else. I've carried this family's weight for years. Quietly. Without asking. But now that I'm not picking up the phone, you realize just how much I mattered. He looked like he wanted to argue. But he didn't. because there was nothing left to say. Finally, he asked quietly, "Are you going to unlock the cards?" I stared at him for a long, cold second. "No," I said, then got up and walked him to the door. 2 hours after Nolan left my apartment, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer. A minute later, it rang again. Then a message popped up. "Mom, please. Just 10 minutes. We're back at JFK now. Can we come over?" They were back. Earlier than expected. That meant they must have cut the trip short. Probably couldn't survive without working cards or access to funds. I ignored the message. Then a knock. At my door. My stomach twisted slightly. I walked over and looked through the peephole.
Mom.
Alone. I opened the door partway. She looked tired, sunburnt, hair a mess, eyes puffy like she hadn't slept on the plane. But she still wore her pearls and held her designer purse like armor. "Can I come in?" she asked. I hesitated, then stepped aside. She walked in slowly, looking around. Her voice was soft. "I've never been here before." "No one ever asked," I replied. She turned to me. "I didn't realize you lived like this." I shrugged. "Because you never cared to find out." That hit her. I could see it. She sat on the edge of my couch, hands folded. "Hannah, I owe you an apology. A real one." I didn't say anything. "I messed up." "We messed up," she continued. "I thought we were making a decision based on logic, money, convenience. But I see now we made a choice based on assumptions. That you'd always be fine. That you'd understand." I looked at her. "You told me it was too expensive to include everyone. But you included cousins plus ones, people I haven't spoken to in years. Everyone except me." She nodded slowly. "I thought you wouldn't care. You always seemed above it. Strong. Distant." "Because I had to be," I said. "You made me feel like the extra piece in this family. Like the help." She looked down, quiet. "You're right." That surprised me. Then she added, "I'm not here to ask for money. Or card limits. Or access. I want to fix this. Not for the accounts. For us." I studied her face. There was something genuine there. Regret? Or just exhaustion? Then she stood, reaching into her purse. "I wrote you something on the flight back." She handed me a folded note. I didn't open it right away. She stepped toward the door. "You don't have to forgive me now. Maybe never. But just know we remember who holds the family together. We just took too long to admit it." Then she walked out. I sat alone for a while after that. Note still in hand. I unfolded it. It was short. Just a few lines in her handwriting. "We forgot the one who never forgot us. I'm sorry we made you feel small. When really, you were the one holding us all together." No excuses. Just that. And for once, it felt real. I didn't forgive her right away. But I didn't tear up the note either. The next few days were quiet. No messages. No calls. Just silence. I thought maybe they'd given up, moved on, accepted that I was done fixing things for them. Then on Saturday morning, I got an unexpected notification. A transfer request. From Dad's personal account. Amount: $1. Note: testing if you'll block this too. I rolled my eyes. But then another came. Amount: $2,000. Note: your name should have been on everything from the start. Fixing that now. A minute later, a shared Google Doc invite landed in my inbox. The title: Family Financial Plan. Hannah Green, owner. I clicked it. It was a document Nolan had written. It included plans to move all family assets, investments, retirement, shared properties, under a single financial oversight system. Under my name. They wanted to make it official. They weren't just asking for help this time. They were handing me the reins.
Publicly.
Fully. It was the first time in my life they weren't pretending I was the quiet one in the corner. Sunday morning, Amber showed up. No text. No call. Just knocked on the door. She stood there with a small bag of bakery pastries, awkward and unsure. Not a trace of her usual smugness. "I brought cinnamon knots. Your favorite, right?" I crossed my arms. You really think cinnamon knots will fix everything?
No, she said.
But I figured they're a start. I sighed and opened the door. She walked in slowly, setting the bag on the counter. I was horrible, she said right away. I thought I was just being honest when I said you'd be bored on the trip. But I realize now I was just being cruel. I didn't want you there. Because I knew I couldn't control the spotlight when you were. I looked at her, surprised. Amber? Admitting jealousy? She continued. You were always the one working quietly, getting things done. I just never wanted to admit that the one I looked down on was actually ahead of me. The room was still. She added, we all made you feel replaceable. But the truth is, we were lost without you. Not just financially. Everything. I stayed quiet. But inside, something shifted. Maybe it wasn't revenge I wanted. Maybe it was recognition. And maybe I finally had it. That night, I sat at my window, staring at the city lights. Their trip had collapsed without me. Their pride had too. And maybe now, for the first time ever, they'd start building something new with me in it. Not behind them, but beside them. A week later, the family invited me to dinner. Not out of obligation. Not to ask for anything. This time it was different. They chose my apartment. Said they didn't want to meet at some fancy restaurant or a noisy family house. They wanted to come where I lived. Where I built everything. At 7 p.m. sharp, they all arrived. Mom, Dad, Nolan, Amber, even Uncle Rick. Everyone came with something in hand. Wine, takeout trays, desserts. Not out of charity, but contribution. For the first time, they were showing up. And this time, I didn't feel like an outsider. We sat at my long oak table eating, talking, laughing, and I was quiet at first, watching them try, really try. Not just to make small talk, but to listen.
To see me.
About halfway through dinner, Dad cleared his throat. I need to say something, he began, setting his fork down. The room fell quiet. I never thought much about how things landed on your shoulders. We just got used to it. You were dependable.
Strong.
I thought that meant you didn't need us. He looked right at me. But you deserved us. Our attention. Our gratitude. Our respect. Mom added gently. We weren't a family without you. Just a group of people doing things together. You were the one holding it all up. Amber leaned forward, chin in hand. We're not asking you to fix things anymore. Just to let us earn our way back. I sat there, emotions swirling. Part hurt, part relief, part calm. It wasn't about getting revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my place. Not begging for it. Not waiting for a seat. Taking it. After dessert, Nolan handed me a small envelope. Inside was a single key card. The beach house. I asked. He nodded. We voted. It's yours now. You spent your whole life watching from the outside. It's time we start giving you front row. I looked around the table. No one argued. No one looked resentful. For the first time, they all agreed. I didn't cry. I didn't make a speech. I just smiled, held the key tight in my palm, and said, thanks. I'll make sure the Wi-Fi works next time. The room erupted in laughter. And for once, it wasn't hollow. It was real. I wasn't forgotten anymore. I wasn't invisible. I was home.